Welcome back to Autism Live. It is my great honor right now to introduce our next guest. She is an award-winning writer, director, and editor. She is here today to talk with us about her new film, Loop, which is a Pixar short and is just tearing it up. You're going to be very excited to hear about it for a very specific reason. But first of all, let's welcome Erica Milsom, director of this lovely film. Hi, Erica. I'm so excited that you're here. For those of you, I talked a little bit about this after the fact, but the Ed Asner Family Center had their holiday party, and I went to it, and they were debuting a series of Pixar shorts, and Loop was one of them, and Erica was there to speak to the audience. And first of all, we love Loop. We're gonna let you talk about Loop here in a second, but we also love you, because you were amazing. You stayed afterwards to do a talk back. And then after that was over, the kids lined up to talk to you. And by kids, I mean everybody from, I think the youngest one was 3 years old, up through adults. You know, I count myself as one of the kids, lined up to talk to you. And I just really appreciated the amount of time and effort that you put in to meet with each and every one of those individuals. They were so touched and moved. I think we all were. So I just had to say, you're the real deal, and I'm super impressed, and we were so excited that you had this time to do this. So welcome. And now, tell us about Loop. Tell us what it's about and where people can watch it and when.
That's great. Thank you for asking that. It's actually, so Loop is a short film that was made through a new program at Pixar called the Spark Shorts program, which is, I think, a super exciting program overall. It's exploring new voices and new stories that are coming out at Pixar. We're making the films pretty fast compared to our traditional feature and short film pipeline, but I think that's kind of awesome because it's letting us be more experimental, more a broader set of stories than we might be able to bring to the screen otherwise. So we made it, before we had a place to put it, we were making these short films, and then Disney Plus came to be, and it's just like this amazing space where we can now place these new short films in collections and let people watch them. So Loop premiered last Friday on Disney Plus, and you can find it by going to Disney Plus, and then if you do the Spark Shorts series there's just so many good short films in that series. So did that answer your question?
Yes, so we can watch it now on Disney Plus. I have to ask this question because the fact that it just debuted, does that make you eligible for next year's Oscars?
I'm looking at our, yes, it's possibly. Does it make us eligible for next year's Oscars?
It will be.
It will be, yeah. So we did qualify the shorts, Float, Wind, and Loop, which debuted in the, a timeline that they'll be eligible for next year's Oscars, and we did qualify them by playing them theatrically. So, yeah.
Well, wonderful. Because I think it's worthy. I definitely think it's worthy, so let me be one of the first people to say that. I will look forward to seeing Loop on the list for next year, for 2021. So part of the reason why, we love Pixar, and we love good animation, and we love a good short, right? But there's a bigger reason why we felt like having you on to talk about Loop. We believe, we're reporting that it's the only instance that we're aware of that a leading character is someone who is considered nonverbal. And if somebody can, come up with something, but as far as we're aware of, it is the first time that is happening. So tell folks, obviously we don't want to give much away, but about, in particular, this character that's in the film and what they might want to know before watching.
Oh, great. When I first started thinking about what story I wanted to tell with Loop, I was really thinking about experiences that I'd had in my life that maybe I had never seen on the screen before. And I had worked at different points with adults with disabilities and young people with disabilities, and had been in a lot of spaces where there were very different communication styles at play. And oftentimes a broad variety of communication styles at play. And I always felt like people who are nonverbal have this fascinating way of connecting, but it's a very private language, right? Like it's a language that oftentimes family members, teachers, friends can learn, but it's not something that's ubiquitous. Like you can't take a Rosetta Stone class on how to communicate with a person who is nonverbal necessarily. You have to find your way together, and I thought that would be a great story. Number one, I just was like, if you're trying to tell a story, a lot of times in Pixar shorts, there's like there's no dialogue. So I was like, well, I want to have dialogue because I like writing character dialogue, and I like characters who particularly talk a lot. But I was like, I also wanted to have this character who had a different way of communicating. So when I was first, right off the bat, I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. Why is she nonverbal? And I think that's a thing that not everybody has thought about in Loop. It's like, she is autistic, but we never say that in the film itself, within the body of the film, because most people, when they have an interaction with a person who has a different set of abilities, they're not diagnosticians. They don't know, that you're autistic or that you have cerebral palsy or that you are, maybe sometimes you'll know someone is deaf if they let you know, but a lot of times we don't know that. We just know what we don't know. We don't know how to talk to them. We don't know how to connect. So that was the original idea for the film. And then we quickly realized we needed to really understand, like, why is she nonverbal? That in order to make a really truthful, honest portrayal of a character who people could really connect to, we needed to kind of analyze our character and understand that. So that's when I got together with a bunch of different parents at Pixar whose children have communication differences and talked about how their child might react to this canoe situation, because I knew I wanted it to be an canoe. And it was just so interesting listening to parents of autistic people talking about things they knew about their kids and how their kids would react. And I was like, wow, that would be powerful storytelling, powerful drama. And then I immediately was like, I need to not just talk to parents, I need to talk to autistic people and start to understand how they would experience this journey. So that was how I found the idea for the character in Luke, who is a non-speaking autistic girl. It was kind of a circuitous journey to that, but I'm so grateful that we did choose autism as the reason that she doesn't speak, because it kind of opened up this beautiful, this I don't want to say Pandora's box, I want to say it opened up a lot of learning for everyone who was on Loop, where we got to speak with autistic people, to study different, all these wonderful people who are talking about their experience on the internet, and sort of start to understand like the different styles of communication, some of the different mannerisms, the different perceptive input, the way that they're receiving sensory experience and how that can change your story. It was amazing. It was such a profound process making this film, and I feel like it opened a door at the studio that we just, like if you're not making a film about something, you may not have a reason to really start to be curious about it and study it. And then by study, I mean explore and consider. And I think that being creators, the wonderful creators at Pixar, like everyone is so excited about learning and then portraying that, like finding a way to both caricature and animation, but also like visualize and filmically create a story with the new information that we learn from the process of making the film.
That's a great answer, and
Okay, sorry.
that's great. When you were there the night of the Ed Asner Center, you had the opportunity to watch a room full of people who are somewhere in the autism community. There were parents, there were people on the spectrum of all ages, in both categories, and you got to watch a room full of people watch this film. I'm curious, were you able to notice what was happening among the audience? Because I felt it, but I'm just curious, were you too busy watching other things to notice what happened in the audience? It's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I feel like I loved watching that film with that audience, and on some level, it felt, I've made a couple of other films before, and so the first viewing with an audience that aren't your friends or your colleagues is always like super nerve-wracking.
we more than liked it. What was very interesting to me was that, and we watched several different shorts, and as I said, there was quite a mix of people that were there in the audience, and they were having different experiences and different challenges to be able to sit and watch film after film after film. And there was one person that I was seated very close to who was having a vocalization that they were vocalizing throughout the films. And as an audience that's very used to that, we all sort of, that became the hum below the films, and everybody just had sort of accepted that. But it was very interesting that Loop started, and we got about, a minute in, and everybody realized what was happening, even though some of us already knew. And it was very interesting because everything got quiet, including the individual who had kept the hum going. And I watched that individual lean closer.
Oh, that's so cool.
Isn't
that's
it?
So cool to know. Wow.
And I feel like we all leaned closer. It was like something magical is happening here that's bigger than all of us. And it was so, I don't know the right word. Cathartic doesn't cover it. It was being accepted. It was like, oh, we've reached the point where we are accepted enough, our community, because everybody fell in love with both characters, the two main characters. And I don't want to give anything away, but I will say that you're very clever. You're a very clever writer, because the other character who, is having this experience with this young woman, and the way that their relationship unfolds is so brilliant, because you found a very positive way to allow for somebody to say, I'm uncomfortable, I don't really want to do this, this is hard for me, which is what we're all feeling when we're having to change our mode of communication. But to watch that in this very specific character and to see the transformation, it was just beautiful and healing. I think healing is the word I want.
Amazing. So amazing. Wow.
Yeah. Well,
so much.
No, I was so moved. My husband and I were having a mop down, and I think that was the response among all the parents, that we were like, oh, but to see the young people and their response and the level of excitement. The thing that occurred to me afterwards, I remember Whoopi Goldberg talking about what she felt like as a child when she watched Star Trek and saw Lieutenant Uhura, a black woman who was in a position of authority, and she was like, oh, okay. That's what it felt like.
It's interesting because Chrissy Kababa, our producer, she always talks about that moment. She's a woman of color, and she's like, it's so profound when you haven't seen yourself on the screen very much in life, to when you finally do, that experience of being seen is so profound.
Yeah.
And and it's funny because, like, I guess that I am so grateful that happened, and I'm so excited every time someone tells me that they felt like seen and that we got something that's true about their experience. It makes me super duper happy. But I also want to remind people, like, to me, this story was about two fascinating characters who have very specific outlooks on the world, specific points of view. They have specific challenges with each other that provide for good friction and good, heartfelt storytelling. And that I don't really understand why more characters with disabilities or with differences haven't been explored in this way on the screen, because they are really interesting. Most of us who are storytellers are looking for a space where there's someone who has something strong to give you as an audience, right? Who can really transform your experience of what you believe about the human experience, or who can transform the idea of who you can connect to. I feel like that's a very wonderful and common part of being a filmmaker or a storyteller. And to me, that's what I got from Renee. Like, that's, the power of her character was really helpful throughout the whole story. I was, like, very grateful that I got to are not ignored, and like it's amazing to do it through Pixar because we do have such a grand footprint in terms of storytelling. So I feel like it was that is such a beautiful convergence to get to tell a small story at a big studio about a group of people who are really present and really interesting and have like an experience of the world that's so so it's something we can all learn from. And I loved that it could be a part of our story. But it's so so it's always interesting. Like, wow, well, I'm not sure why there aren't more of these. I hope that Loop helps people feel like, oh, okay, let me see what other stories there are to tell with characters who might not have the same communication style or characters who are autistic, who have a different viewpoint on the world, and that exploration of point of view as we look forward. And autistic filmmakers and storytellers, by the way, also.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. I'm excited for that.
Absolutely. And so, I want to know now about the young woman who did the voiceover for this character, because she does produce sound. That's a very important part of the film, although it's not a language that we are necessarily familiar with until the film starts. But so tell us about the actress that you had doing this role.
Great. So the actress is named Madison Bandy, and she, we kind of put out a casting call to a lot of nonprofits. I had worked in special ed, worked with special ed groups and with adults with disabilities. I know a lot of the landscape of the Bay Area and where we might possibly find creative people who are nonverbal. So we sent out a casting call to a bunch of places, and Creative Growth. Creative Growth. There's several of these art organizations in the Bay Area, but the one in Oakland, Creative Growth, was like, hey, our weekend program with young adults has two young women who are both vocalize a lot. They're autistic and they're great artists, and I think they didn't tell me they were autistic. They just said they vocalize a lot. So I went out and I kind of sat there awkwardly next to these two girls and introduced myself, and then just like watched them make art, which was wonderful. What a great way to audition someone, right? Yeah. And with Madison, she vocalizes a lot while she creates things. She vocalizes while she's listening to music on the radio. Her family is very musical, so I think she's really moved by music. And I just thought her voice was amazing and really expressive, and you can feel, if you just sat next to her and closed your eyes, you could feel a lot of feelings coming through the way she used her voice. So, and when I first met her, she did a little echolalia. She would say this line from the Goonies that was, "Get out of here." She said that a lot, but otherwise she wasn't using any words. And it was really interesting because kind of akin to Loop, like the more that I hung out with her, then I went and I talked to her parents and we got connected and visited and just sort of made a connection with each other before we started working on the film. And the more interactions we had, the more comfortable we got with each other, the more like words she would use with me. So she's not entirely non-speaking. But when I don't know, I think there's something to her voice that's so powerful and exciting. And I feel like you feel it when you're watching Luke, that you can feel emotionality in her voice, and you can feel that intriguing sense of like, I don't know what she's saying, but I'm curious what she is saying. Yeah. And that's kind of, at Pixar, it's interesting because they choose the talent for all the films. The casting people, they've talked to me about this before, they're always looking for a voice that kind of jumps out. Like, it's not, there's actors who are amazing who you want to watch how they perform, and their voice is a part of their performance. But when you take away the picture, the voice doesn't jump off the screen. And so I think, we always cast these phenomenal characters whose voices like leap off the screen at you and give the animators a lot of energy that they can create with. And I feel like Madison is exactly that. Like, her voice was something that the animators could really feel and grab onto and figure out how to create an emotional performance alongside or, in concert with that voice.
And so you spend all this time, but then when you got to the actual, directing and recording her, Were there challenges, and do you feel like maybe you were better at meeting those challenges because of your previous experience? Tell us a little bit about what it was like.
You know, it's interesting. It's funny because I almost didn't think of it as challenging, which probably it is, but I felt like it was so fun and creative. Like that the challenge of like, what are we going to do to create a performance here just felt like, oh, let's go in this together. Let's collaborate with Madison. Let's collaborate with her family, because I think many times like that's something that in my experience working with folks with disabilities, like there's often a support network who are really helpful and can facilitate things that people want to do. And that maybe my background, because I have a background in special ed and in accommodations and working with people with disabilities, like I always look at accommodations as just like a nice way to adapt your own process to question like why what you're doing doesn't work for the person in front of you. And so like we brought Madison in for a moment, just like put her in front of a mic, not to record it at all, but just to be like, how does this feel? You know, and it was super distracting. Pixar, you know, if you have a sensory processing difference, Pixar's a lot of sensory processing to happen. So it was really the big way that we made an accommodation was to go to her house, basically, and do all the recording in her house with our people there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we are so excited about this film, and so people can watch this now. It's available now, and the film is called Loop. And I understand that you right now you mentioned documentaries, that you're working on a documentary right now that's a behind the scenes at Pixar. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're pulling together a new series that'll be launching, I think, in the spring. I'm not quite sure when it launches, but yeah, I rolled off of Loop and then rolled into it's another Disney Plus thing. So I'll have a lot of Disney Plus stuff.
Yeah,
but that won't be out for a while. I like to work in a lot of different mediums. So Loop was an amazing experience in animation, and then it's fun to go back to documentary, and then I like it all. I like all the filmmaking parts.
Well, we're appreciative of you. I mean, you said earlier, I don't understand why people aren't telling more of these stories, and I think that there are lots of reasons why. Fear being the top of the list, right? And so you going ahead and doing it, I think, is the most helpful thing that can happen to make more of this happen. And from all the things that you've said, I think that you are unique in that you demonstrate willingness and an openness and patience. That's what I hear from you, the level of patience with and the willingness to be able to change what's happening and not say my process is the process, an openness and a willingness to look at, and the patience to look at what somebody else's process is. And heaven knows we need more of that in the world, so thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on. This is so cool. I'm excited that you guys are telling these stories.
Well, this is a big treat for us. And we're going to be looking forward to our viewers watching Loop. So they can go to Disney Plus and watch that today. Thank you so much, Erica. Thank everybody at Pixar.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.